All right, good afternoon, folks. Welcome to another episode of Live with Jeff, Johnny, and Lee. Jeff, Johnny, how are you, gentlemen?
Okay, so far.
Very good.
All right, glad to hear it. So, folks, it has been a very eventful week. There is a lot going on. We're going to get into a lot of it. One of the things I wanted to show you was this. This is the flight path today of no other than Forte 10. And if you will pay close attention, you will notice that Forte 10 was flying exactly where we were talking about the Russian threat is building up in Kaliningrad and Belarus, as well as along the Baltics. So that was a keen insight that we saw today coming from Forte 10, going exactly where we had talked about. I didn't know if Johnny, Jeff, did you want to talk about where you had been this week or not?
No, that's okay.
Okay. All right. So, Johnny, do you want to tell us what you had to tell us? And do you want to go to the map first, or did you want to talk about the Russian influence?
We'll talk about Russian influence later. Let's go to the map. Let's start with, since you were with Forte there, and we're still working on the thing. You called me yesterday about what's going on with the Yucatan Peninsula. So we're going to be looking down there. Hopefully, I can come up with something. But I have so far it's nothing. But what's happened here, and this was part of the presentation that we put together for what Jeff just did. That was shown over the weekend or the last couple of days and into the weekend. But it's interesting that all of these areas were hit as he was giving that presentation. I called you last night right when Forte had just crossed into Polish airspace and was headed north. I woke up this morning and this is what I saw. It looked like spaghetti dropped down on a plate somewhere. So he made quite a few passes through there. And correct me if I'm wrong, he was at 56,000 feet the whole way. I have two questions for you. First question is, how long can that drone stay up again? Was it 30 hours?
34 hours maximum.
34 hours maximum. Okay. Second question I have, what is the visibility? You've said it before. What's the visibility at 56,000 feet?
250 miles.
250 miles. Okay, that's what I thought.
That's a long way.
That's a long way. So he had a clear view of everything that we had talked about. Okay, so now what we're going to do, you loaded the map, so we're going to flip over to the map. And what we're going to do, we've got new imagery. We just noticed this the other day. Unfortunately, the new imagery did not make it into the presentation that we had. We're going to go to that airfield that's in Kaliningrad there.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to take a look at that. So we need to go over this with a fine-tooth comb because this is, right there to the left, yeah. So we're going to take a look here, all right? So what do we got? We've got more fighter aircraft that have been stacked up at this place.
There's the revetments in between them.
That's what I've been hearing, is that Russia is now forward-moving material towards the border, and it's becoming obvious.
Yes.
Yeah. So the distributed fuel that's just north of where those fighters are parked, that's the main fuel depot. But right here, you can see right here, these are distributed fuel containers, but you see they've masked them now. They've got camo nets over them. These are the same type of camo nets and reinforcements that we see them putting over their SS-27s. And the same type of netting that they've got over their command and control center that's just west of this position. Also, they've brought in big piles of sand. You can see them there to the left. Massive piles of sand. And they've cut all new roads on the northern perimeter of this this entire thing. Yeah, right up here. They've cut all new roads. They've cleaned out all of this. They've cleaned out all of the roadways and the revetments going back into the bunkers. So if standard operating procedure for the Russians is what you see out here, what does that mean? That means that the bunkers are already full, yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things that an amazed person at the presentation said was, how can they be doing this? They're making themselves vulnerable to surprise attack. But what the big picture here is hybrid mobilization. They're calling this a hybrid mobilization, but it's really just a mobilization that's leisurely, slow, and steady and confident. Why? Because NATO has no reserves to match this mobilization. There's no hurry. They can do it step by step. They can do it carefully. They can do it slowly. They can do it in the open. And nobody dare do anything because it's terrifying. And it's meant to be terrifying, I believe, to the leadership in NATO. And it's meant to psychologically wear them down to where they're just going to give in. And but NATO right now is empty-handed. If Germany can't come up with its 800,000 troops till the end of 2027, we're only at the end of 2025. They're never going to get to their mobilization. That's 2 years
they're
out.
not.
The Russians have plenty of time.
Yeah. And I was telling you that they're not starting their, as in like their 18-year-olds and up, the 18 to 20-year-olds, their screenings, they're not starting that until mid to late 2026. That's too late.
Yeah. See, the big problem with the Russians and the big delay was a lot of the Russian generals are making money off of draft or mobilization deferments, and those have been taken away. So, and of course, they're arresting corrupt generals. They're arresting corrupt defense ministry officials in Russia. They've been doing that. You've seen the names of the people that are being prosecuted in Russia, and some of them are big names. And so what they're doing is anybody who's standing in the way of mobilization is just being chopped. And that's what I think what we're seeing and why there's some of these people, the new defense minister and some of these other people, they have people around them that are experts in accounting. And this is what they're doing. They are determined to carry out this mobilization. Why does Putin not accept a deal when Kushner and Witkoff go to Moscow and meet with him for 5 hours? Because he's not interested in peace. This is what he's interested in. This is the mobilization. And hybrid mobilization. It's just a normal mobilization that's done leisurely because we can't respond.
Yes, and they're moving. As in, I saw last week. I told both of you that he signed a decree. Putin did. He signed a new decree saying that all reservists will be ordered to attend mandatory military exercises all throughout 2026, which points to 2027.
Which is why these large training grounds all over Belarus and Russia are, they've expanded their training so they can accommodate a large mobilization of men. And, in you guys' presentation, you go through all of these vehicle storage areas where thousands of vehicles are stored. Those vehicles are just waiting for the men to come, and either they're already trained, they've been in the service before, or they need to be trained. And so they can carry all that out in 2026, and they can be ready at the end of 2026, beginning of 2027, and they can basically just make Europe cough up Ukraine and take whatever part of Europe they want, or divide NATO further, because different countries like Czechia or Hungary or whatever, Slovakia, want to make a separate deal. And so then you get NATO starting to break up.
Yeah.
All right, where to?
Back to that airfield. We want to take a look at the. We're going to head right up that road there to the right. We're going to dip around there, and you're going to tell everybody what this is.
This is a DRASH. This is a deployable rapid assembly shelter. It's an environmental shelter that allows them to roll up the end, unzip it, roll up the end, and roll a fighter jet in, work on the fighter jet in an environmentally friendly condition, and then roll it back out. That's a new addition to this facility. That's never been there before. In fact, it wasn't even there 90 days ago.
Wow, they're just putting stuff up right and left.
Yeah.
In order to do all this on a timetable, with all the infrastructure development, the mobilization, imagine the administrative planning for this. Imagine how much planning, and then to come up with the resources and to make it all work together seamlessly. We're just watching it, and it's a huge job just to watch it, but they're actually carrying it out.
And we're told that, Ukraine, we're to look at Ukraine. That's what we're supposed to look at. That's what we're supposed to see as the Russian, I guess, quote, failure, if you want. But it's sandbagging. I agree with your assessment on it. It's sandbagging. I was listening to, there was a podcast where they had 3 Russian soldiers on there that had defected to the Ukrainian side. And they were explaining, I cannot remember the name of the podcast. I wish I did. But they were explaining the conditions on the Russian side and how awful it was. They had to buy all of their own gear. They didn't get any food. They aren't given the proper sleeping material. Nothing. I mean, it's really nothing. They're just kind of thrown out there and told, here you go. So they have to pay for all of their clothes. They have to pay for their boots. They have to pay for their whatever armor. They're given a gun and they're given bullets, and that's really about it. They're not given food. They're not given adequate housing.
Actually,
no sleeping material.
According
Nothing.
to the interview that I just saw a couple days ago from a Russian soldier who defected from the Russian front line and was captured by the Ukrainians, he said that it's so bad now that they are robbing the dead. They are stealing weapons from the dead bodies. They are stealing uniforms from the dead bodies. They are stealing money, IDs, you name it. They're taking it off the dead. And the leaders are taking the IDs off of the dead, because if the dead are ID'd, then the Russian military has to pay a death benefit. So by stealing the IDs off the dead aren't identified, and by leaving the dead out there, then the buzzards and the dogs in Ukraine are eating them, and so there's nothing left unless you're going to do DNA to try to prove who they are, and if that's not recorded in Russia, then there's no way to prove who that Russian was. So the Russian government does not want the bodies back, nor do they want the bodies ID'd. So the officers are actually condoning the theft of boots, wallets, IDs, uniforms, all that, because they don't want the dead Russians identified.
This is how you mobilize on one front by shorting another front. They basically don't care about the Ukraine front. They're doing it politically. Notice the political propaganda on Zelensky and the corruption. Their propaganda is Zelensky, this Mendez, whatever his supposed friend or former business partner stole, $100 million. Well, behind the scenes, Putin's agents are saying it's billions that he stole, and he stole it for Zelensky. And he's escaped to Israel. And of course, this is they've stolen a third of all the money that the United States has given to Ukraine. I mean, this is what they're telling the MAGA people, that the Ukrainians are thieves and everything given to Ukraine has just been stolen. And meanwhile, the Russians are building up on NATO's border. They're building up for a general world war together with China, I believe, to go after the United States. They want to isolate us. They want Europe to be so disgusted by Trump and his reaction that Europe says to hell with the United States. If the United States says to hell with Europe and Europe is under this pressure, Europe will say to hell with the United States. And that is the reaction that Moscow wants.
And you can see that playing out.
To me, it looks like they're getting it.
Political strategy in terms of psychological warfare is the preamble to the kinetic stuff. They are not going to go kinetic until they've got our brains controlled.
Well, they've certainly got the Russians' brain controlled, because there's a Russian military channel now on Rumble, of all places, where they even speak Russian and have a Russian chat. And when I went in and said that Wagner was founded by a Nazi lover, they all said I was lying, and there was no proof of that. I asked them how Wagner got its name. None of them could tell me. So I thought it was absolutely amazing that Americans were telling me I had no idea what I was talking about when they didn't even know how Wagner got its name.
Yeah, the propaganda in Russia is extreme. They're controlling all of the media. They're controlling all the messaging. And they've got a lot of people in America and in North America convinced that Zelensky's the bad guy, NATO's the bad guy, Russia is only merely defending itself, Russia feels threatened. I mean, when you look at the Polish border, it's Poland that's putting up the defensive lines, not Russia. Russia isn't digging tank traps and putting up dragon's teeth. It's the Poles and the Lithuanians that are doing that. If Russia really felt threatened, they would have these massive defensive barriers along the NATO border. They're not threatened by NATO. They're laughing. And they're telling their own people what they need to tell them to mobilize them. It's the first rule of World War III, according to Sokolovsky's Russian Soviet military strategy. You orient your civilian population to who your enemy is, and you prepare them psychologically for the war. And Europe is not psychologically prepared for war. The young people aren't thinking, oh, I'm going to go fight, maybe die in a war. And the same thing in the United States. This is completely out of our idea of what can happen.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's been 34 years in the making.
Yeah, and you've got Lavrov today saying that, what did I say? The Europeans are, he said the Europeans are being, let me get the exact quote. They're in a militaristic frenzy, he says, and they're looking for a fight. And he said that Russia's ready.
This is amazing. This is what Stalin taught them. Always accuse your enemy of what you are doing. They're in a militaristic frenzy. They're prepared and eager for a fight. NATO doesn't. These people are scared. They don't want to fight. They don't like the idea of fighting. They're not accustomed to it. 34 years since the so-called fall of the Soviet Union, they believed that this was all over, that it was peace in our time. And they basically let their arms industries die. And now they have to revive their arms industries where Russia can produce more armaments than all of NATO combined year by year. And that's not even counting what China and North Korea can do. I mean, they're in trouble. We have a thin layer of highly advanced stuff that isn't going to be able to survive the masses that they can put forward. Doesn't matter how well trained they are. You can't, when you're outnumbered 5 or 6 or 7 to 1, well, when it gets to 7 to 1, you're done.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So let's get down here to the map because it appears...
Let's finish the rest of the airbase here, and I just dropped the lat lawn to the next place we're going to go.
Okay.
So they've added some new barricades out at the front entrance as well. So they've added more concrete Z patterns that you have to go through. So those are all new. So they've cleared out another parking. You see they've got parking outside now.
Yeah. Yep. They make them park out next to the road.
So they're definitely loading this place up. And take a look at the east end of the runway. You pointed this out. You can see how many fighters are going in there.
Oh, yeah. Look at all the skid marks. This is a new runway.
So they've been doing a lot of practice off this airport.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Whole lot. Whole lot. And then the command and control bunker covered by nets out here.
Drone netting.
Yeah, this is their fob.
Is that a radar to the left there, Lee, that's casting a shadow? Right
Sure
there.
Looks like one. Yep, sure looks like one. When you look at the shadow on the ground. But they've added a lot of equipment out here, put it under nets. A lot of aircraft. Before there were 18 aircraft, now there's 42 that are visible at this airfield. So more than double. All right, and so you want to move on?
Yeah, we're going to move on. This is just the new stuff that they've got, and this imagery is what do we say this was? About 30 days old.
Yeah, this is November the 1st.
Yeah, so this is really So this facility here, this was not marked. I found this a couple of days ago. This is on the Belarusian and Latvian border.
Okay.
So, and then so where this is, if we look directly west, of here, at the border, you see that little circle-looking thing? You see how much the Latvians are concerned about this. So they're building concrete walls at this point.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So they're cutting all that down, and they're doing an actual, you can see the concrete wall that they've put in.
Right.
So they expect, I mean, that facility that's on the other side, on the Belarusian side, that's a big facility. That's one of the bigger ones that we've seen.
Yeah.
So the Latvians definitely expect problems to be right here at this point, because they've cut all this down, and they're building a solid concrete wall for miles at this point.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it goes on and on and on. If we get up to where the Russian border is, you're going to see an orange pin right up there. And you can see where they've continued to put another concrete wall, and they've reinforced anti-tank ditches and dragon's teeth.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah. So they're definitely concerned about these being crossing points here.
I don't think that they think that the aircraft that we've spotted are inflatables, decoys.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
So all of this is new. Every bit of this is new. All this is new construction. This is a concrete, again, concrete wall. This is not just some sheet metal they've stuck up there.
This is huge. Massive.
So, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
That's full of water already.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
So, I mean, they're definitely taking it seriously, as they should.
Yeah. All right, where do you want to go now?
You're going to see a grouping of pins to your right, to the northeast, right here. All right, so we're going to take a look far left first. And I found this military base in the middle of this little town here.
Interesting. Actually, hold on a second.
Yeah, I just found this, I think it was the night before last.
All right.
Yeah, there's no street view. Yeah, there's nothing there.
There is another one of these that I have found that looks just like this.
Uh-huh.
And it is actually a forestry office.
Really?
Yes. They have the same tower, the same roof. They don't have the drill box back here.
That's what gave it away for me.
Yeah, they don't have the drill box back here, but it is a local forestry office that has the building, the compound, and the vehicles. They have more vehicles, and they're not green.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you see another one of these that doesn't have the drill pad and has vehicles lined up over here, it's the local forestry office.
Okay, fair enough.
So that's how you can tell the difference. The military base has the drill pad, the forestry office doesn't.
It has the drill bar, and it's also got the cars parked outside there, and then to the left, just outside the front gate there.
And the forestry office vehicles are red, not green. Okay, now where? Over here. So we're going to take a look here. I don't know. I cannot be 100% sure, but I think that these look like launch pads, and I'm going to tell you why. Because it's all reinforced concrete. That one in the center there is a helipad. Yeah. You can see that clearly there. But the concrete roads going into it are long and curvy, right? Yeah. Long and bendy, just like we like them. And if you zoom out from this entire region, you can see
that they've got basically this whole thing. You can see just very slightly, you can see where it's been cut out. And they've got double fences around it. Now,
Oh, yeah,
why
yeah,
this would why this would be here, I don't know. And I think it might have something to do with the facility that's just to the east, right here. I don't know what this is. My first thought is that this was a prison, right? Because of the fencing on the outside. That was my first thought.
No,
Yeah, it's not.
no. There ain't
when
no
I fir-
prison in Russia with that kind of fencing around the outside of it.
No, there's not. And I thought,
That looks
okay, and if
nuclear
it was
to
a
me.
yeah, if it was a prison, then it would be listed as a prison because
Right.
the Russians do, whether you believe it or not, the Russians do list where their prisons are and what they are, and you can go in and take a look at them. But this is not listed as anything. But that's a lot of fences, and that's a lot of security. That's a lot of people working there.
Everybody's
and
outside.
they've got-
This is nuclear.
Everybody's outside. Yeah, and they've got
count the fences. That's
yeah,
nuclear.
that's all that, and then they've got fences inside of fences inside the facility, and they've got guard towers on every corner of this place.
Yeah, that's a nuclear facility. They got nuclear.
That is
weapons there.
massive. That is absolutely massive. This is on the border with Latvia, and when I say on the border, I mean
Yeah, the border's right there.
6 kilometers. Which is 3.8 miles. These are bunker
These are
sites.
all underground bunkers here.
Yeah, these are all underground bunkers.
Every single one of those is a bunker. And look at how curved the roads are.
Yep. Reinforced concrete on every one of these places.
Yeah, that's nuclear missiles there, buddy.
Okay. Yeah, here's a full-blown rifle range
Yep.
that's in use. And then they've got a substation right there on the blue pin. They've got a substation, double substation going into this place.
Given the
'Cause there's nothing
size
else here.
of the
Yeah, go ahead.
training facilities we've seen out here, and the fact they're pushing people out into them, how many people are they training now? Can we estimate from the size of these military reservations and
Oh,
training
tens
areas?
of thousands at a time.
Yeah.
I mean,
And-
the training
and-
areas are huge. They're monstrous.
You know, it used to be
And-
that training a soldier was an 8-week thing, but it's actually longer than that now, isn't it? For the Russians.
Well, for us, but for the Russians, sometimes it's 1 to 3 days in certain cases.
Well, yeah, when they're putting their cannon fodder in Ukraine, yes, they just send them
Yeah.
straight to the front. But I remember Colonel Lunev saying years ago, this is 27 years ago now, when I first met him, he said, you can train a soldier in 8 weeks, and it takes 2 years to train a division commander. And I remember a reaction of American military officer, a major that I know, and he said, well, that's ridiculous, 2 years to train a division commander. You know, of course, and then it's ridiculous to train a soldier for 8 weeks. But if you have a mass army concept where you are using the population in mass, how many elite troops can stop how many men trained in mass, supported by nuclear weapons or vacuum bombs? I'm not sure how that equation works out. The Russians seem fairly confident that it works in their favor.
Well,
What do you
the
think?
the Spetsnaz lieutenant commander that came into my chat the other night said that he was deployed for 6 months, came home for 3 weeks, went back for 6 months. He just came home for 3 weeks, and now he's going for 3 months of training. So what kind of training are you giving that lieutenant commander that he has to be in training for 3 months? I mean, 3
Yeah,
months
that's a
of-
full course. 3 months is a full course.
yeah, he wouldn't tell me.
Some type of specialist, yeah, he's not going to, no.
Yeah, he wouldn't tell me what he was taking.
Or for some special operational mission that they're going to perform.
Yeah,
Right.
like rail
And,
sabotage.
I, and
maybe.
I asked him, what flat out, what does Z stand for? And he says, I said, you know, because you got Z's on all of your tanks. You've got Z's on all of your uniforms. What does Z stand for? He said, Zapad, West. And I said, so you do want to conquer the West? He said, no, no. I said, yeah, you do. I said, here, let me play this interview for you. So I played an
Oh, you
interview.
played that one. Yeah. I
And-
know which one you're talking about.
and it said that they wanted to go to the West. He goes, yes, I've seen that. And I said, they're saying that you're going to invade the West. They're saying that you're going all the way to Stalingrad in Germany. Yeah, that's what they said.
You mean Berlin, not Stalingrad.
Berlin.
Yeah. The Reichstag is what it means.
Reichstag.
Yeah, we're
Reichstag,
going all the way to the Reichstag in Berlin. And he said, well, some people think that, but that's not what we're doing. And I said, well, then why are you building up? And I showed him the dragon's teeth on the Polish border. I showed him all the thousands of troops. I showed him all the stuff that had been moved into Kaliningrad. I showed him all the stuff that had been moved over to the west. And I said, you've been in Spetsnaz for 9 years. I said, I want your honest opinion. I said, who has the best map of Russian positions that you've ever seen? And he said, you do. Because I showed him my map. I showed him this map live on the show. And so he had nothing to say about denying the fact that they were going to the West. And I said, why would they call it West if they weren't planning on going to the West? And he didn't have an answer.
That's the Western strategic direction.
Yeah. And so after that, he started making insulting remarks about my wife and my family and all kinds of other things.
And maybe your mother, if he thought of it.
Well, yeah, we got spammed by Russians thereafter.
Yeah. Yeah, like we all get if we allow an open chat.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
They're determined to win.
yeah. I told him, I said, the best thing that Russians are good for in Ukraine, don't you? And I told him target practice. And I said, the best thing that Russians do in Ukraine is die. He didn't like that either, but oh well. So, all right, where do you want to go now, Johnny?
There's going to be a yellow pin just northwest of here on the border that says parking.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to ask you something. This is on the border. You ever seen a parking lot like this on the border?
No, and that's a hell of a nice helipad.
It is a very nice helipad, isn't it? I thought you'd appreciate that.
Yeah. That's bus parking.
Now, let
That's
me
for
ask you something.
bringing. For bringing personnel, then.
Now, let me ask you something. What do you see just outside there? Just right there to the. Go back. Stay with the parking lot, right? Go to that building on the left where they got the loading bays,
Yeah.
and then look out front.
Oh, underground bunker. You got to have those at a parking garage.
You gotta have. Of course, you have to have those.
So, how
right?
much underground space is this? A place for people to go to be underground while fallout is passing over
Now, this is on the border. This is literally on the border.
on the border?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's
So
a couple
another
things
one.
here. Okay. First off, this. All right. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Estes Transport. Estes. They have the big yellow trucks.
Yes.
Down the
Yeah.
highway.
Go on.
Estes.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Estes that started Estes Transport was best friends with my father. And I was actually at the Estes Transport facility to show how they interchange trucks. So freight comes in and freight goes back out. So if you look at the number of doors that you have, you need 2 or 3 parking spots for each door. That parking lot is way fucking bigger than that.
It is. Now, here's what's interesting. Where that helipad is, if you look in the fenced-in area, what do we have here?
That's a tower, it looks like.
We have another underground bunker.
Yeah, here.
So it doesn't, with the number of buses, the facility on the surface looks too small for the number of people that would be fitting in those buses.
Yes. It is.
right?
Now,
It is.
So-
There's
so the
no way. So this
implication
is if it's a cargo distribution facility, this is administration, and this is sorting, and this parking lot here would be appropriate for this building. All of
Okay.
this is another game.
oh, well, you see, Lee, you hit now. This is just to satisfy all the trolls that would be. Okay, so you'd call this, or someone would call this daily traffic, right?
Right.
Isn't that what they would? Yeah, it's daily traffic.
The
Well, there's a
problem is
problem.
there's nobody there.
There's nobody there, and if you go back in time, there's really never been anybody there. Okay, so daily traffic would be across the road here. Okay, so this is daily traffic, right? So there's the border, right?
Right.
So we're gonna work our way towards the east. We're gonna go on the Russian side here, okay? So here's your daily traffic, all right? There's your daily traffic there. And then again, you'll have some people say, all right, well, that's gonna be that's your customs office. No, go to the east. Go to the east. There's your customs office.
Yeah.
This is a normal size parking lot for the facilities that they have there for a
Right.
customs
Right.
office.
Right. Right.
This is normal.
Right.
That's not what that place is.
No. And I've never seen a customs office with a helipad big enough for an MI-26.
No.
Or with bunkers. Custom
Right.
office
Or with
with
bunkers.
bunkers. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yes.
So, do you think that they have something underground under this that's a larger facility underground?
I don't know if they have a larger facility. Oh, wait a minute. They got water.
They have water, yeah.
Yeah, they have
Probably.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's more under there than we know about. This right here, just that amazes.
That is probably one of the cleanest helipads I've seen the Russians build.
Sorry, I gotta know.
And it's very this place
Holy
is very
shit. It's,
That's for a monster helicopter,
it's
isn't it?
50 meters across. That's
Why do they
100
need that many meters for a helipad?
a MI-26?
I see.
That's an MI-26 pad.
How many people can be brought in on an Mi-26?
Like 80
Ah,
at a time. The Russians have enough Mi-26s to have 5,800 men airborne at a time.
is this a mobilization assembly area?
Could be with all these parking
it
spots.
could be a staging. Look at all that parking.
Yeah,
mean,
they bring in. They
And these
bring
that's
in
not for
people-
cars.
No,
Yeah,
that's
none
not.
of that
for
is
cars.
cars.
Is that for logistics trucks?
Well, it could be, but I mean, they've got this over here for logistics trucks.
Yeah, here's your customs office.
Yeah, but logistics for a combined arms army is going to need a lot
Oh,
more
yeah.
than that.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
sure.
right.
And could there be underground ammunition storage here? Uniforms?
We got more
Equipment.
That
underground.
warehouse, there's another underground there. That whole where those loading bays are, that whole thing could be a magazine.
Right,
Yeah, I mean, so these are ammunition. These bunkers are for ammunition storage.
probably. The fact
Yeah.
that there's an MI-26 helipad here, that's not customs.
No, and the whole thing's fenced in.
Right,
The whole
right.
facility's fenced in.
Yeah.
Right, because
Well,
if you
let's-
come over to the
let's-
customs office over here, there ain't no helipad.
Yeah, I think that's a giant supply center for ammunition and other stuff.
And
Why
they've-
would you make that many parking spaces for supply trucks? That's enough. That's enough
haven't-
supply
I have
trucks
not.
for.
Yeah,
for
I've not
more than
counted the
brigade.
parking spaces, but that's going to probably be the biggest parking lot we've ever seen.
You know, that's enough for the supply trucks for a division. It looks
Easy.
to me. Yeah, this looks like more than 200 trucks. It's got to be more than 200 spots.
well, this is the most calming dock or entryway. See right there? See the dirt? See the trail? Coming over through the gate,
So it swings
Oh, yeah.
around, yeah, and it goes right up. Yeah, I see it
back
now.
over here.
So what have they been putting in there?
I don't know, but they've been going in there a good bit, but they're not
They've been getting it
staying.
ready. They've been getting it ready for something. 0 hour. When is 0 hour? Boy, don't we all want to know.
Yeah. There is rail service. There's rail service right here.
Yeah.
How close does that rail line come to there?
Well, there's the building,
It's right there. Yeah.
It's right there.
so they could put rail
The problem
service
is
in there
that
easy enough.
yeah, they could put it. They just need a couple of bridging units in there, and there they go.
Well, it must lead up to a road up further up where they bring the trucks to offload from there, right? There's got to be an offload point somewhere. What's that?
I don't know. We'll keep looking here. But anyway, all right. What else we got, Johnny?
Another pin, another yellow pin in the north, a little bit further up. It's going to be this is an actual border crossing. But what caught my interest was the size of the helipad and the underground facility that's at it.
Again,
Yeah, not quite 50 meters across, but the underground facility where the pin is.
Yeah.
That's underground.
yep. Gets more interesting all the time.
Mm-hmm. So 2 orange pins to the north of here are going to say wall. And the Latvians are concerned, and the Estonians are concerned about this being an incursion point here because they have built not only one row of that is a serious wall.
Yeah,
That's more serious than the one we saw down south.
right. But they got 2 of them.
They've got 2 of them. Yes. So, and the construction is continuing, but that wall goes all the way up to this point right here.
There's netting on that building, isn't there? Is there drone netting on that building?
There
that's it.
could be. I can't
I
tell.
think that's a pile of dirt.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Pile of dirt with snow. Yeah.
Mm.
But that is a serious wall that they're putting in there.
Now, who's putting in this wall?
Latvia.
The Latvians.
And that wall's going to do what to a tanker and APC? It's going to stop it?
Well, I'm assuming that that's what they're looking at. But if you take a look to the east of here, you'll see the airfield. We've looked at this airfield before. Lee, you've pointed this one out.
Oh, yeah. It's got helicopters at it. A bunch of them. The revetments are cleaned out. Taxiway is clear. That's a MI-26 right there. So we know that they like MI-26s. There's a MI-8.
Yeah, they've got motor pools in town too as well. So I would assume that that's what they're concerned about. Because if you look at where they've built that wall at that point, that's a giant clearing there.
Yeah.
So they could stage, the Russians could stage just on the other side of that
Yeah,
and come
right here.
across right at that point. So yeah, that's all just a giant clearing right there. So the Latvians are reinforcing that entire part with, I mean, that is a serious wall that they're putting up there.
Yep.
And this is to prevent infiltrators from getting into Latvia?
Yes, I would assume, yeah.
I would think
'Cause
that
I
and
don't-
mass.
I don't think a wall like that is much in the way of a modern defensive barrier in terms of modern warfare.
Well, when you
No,
got
not really.
no more forces than Latvia does, a wall is better than nothing.
It's funny, a fence would be cheaper, so they are spending some kind of money. Do you think there are towers and guards along this wall?
Sensors.
There's going to be.
Ah,
Yeah, sensors. And if you're going to knock the wall down,
maybe
it's going to make a noise.
there's drones to respond to anyone who comes near over the wall.
All right, where to now, Johnny?
Red pin that says listening post. This place is just out off in the, you can see where it's at. It's very remote, it's very isolated, and you got to park outside.
Yeah.
So I would assume that that's what this place is, because if you look at the antennas that are sticking out from the inside of it,
Yeah.
then that's what it's going to be.
All right, now where?
Two yellow pins north of here along the border that are going to say new construction. So this is Estonia we're in now. So the Estonians, you can see, it's not exactly at the pin, but all here and then south. So they've cut all this down.
Yeah.
And this goes on for miles, right? So you might as well just not waste your time because it goes on and on and on. But everything south, all along the border, they've cut all that down too.
Yeah. They're going to mine that.
So they're going to mine it. That's right, and they're going to probably do Dragon's Teeth and everything else, and that's going to continue all the way up to where the northern yellow pin is, where it says new construction. They're doing everything here all along this border. They've cut all this down. They've leveled all this off, and they're going to be building a serious wall here.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah.
They're serious. And this is April of 2025.
Yes, that's this year. So
Yeah, April 18th. All right, now where?
that's going to be it. So that's my map study for the week.
All right, did you want to talk about Russian influence?
Yes. Where would you like to start?
Well, you tell us. We know that,
Well,
that they've infiltrated the media in the United States. We know that they're in RT is in Rumble. We know that there is Russian influence in Buy Me a Coffee. We
yes.
know that there is Russian influence in Kick.
Mhm.
And we know that there is Russian influence in the company that pays Tim Pool and from the Poolcast and a bunch of the other leading stars on Rumble, that the company that hosts all of them was paid $10 million
That's right.
from Russia Television through two people. So you start with any of those and let's hear the story.
Well, when you said that you were having trouble with, was it Kick? I think that's where I started.
Yeah, Kick.
Wasn't that right? Yeah, you were having problems with Kick. And I decided that I was going to go over and take a look. I thought, well, all right, if they're giving him a hard time, so I thought, all right, well, what kind of people do they have over there? Right, let's take a look. And I started looking, and it's a platform for video games, live streaming video games. It's a platform for online gambling, and it's a platform for I guess, would you call them digital prostitutes? You know,
Yeah.
the ones that take their clothes off and hang out next to a pool and smoke dope in a bikini and drink alcohol and people throw money at them.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and they wouldn't give you a deal, right? They wouldn't give you like a partnership or anything like that.
No, they wouldn't give me. They wouldn't
And-
let me be a content creator, even though we had met their requirements for. You only had to meet their requirements for 30 days. We met their requirements for 90 days, and they still wouldn't authorize us, even though we had exceeded their requirements.
Well, apparently, like I told you, I mean, you probably should have just put a bikini on and went and laid next to the pool.
Well, from what I understand, a
And-
lot of my viewers are now getting ads for bikinis.
oh, really?
Yeah, it's
Well,
crazy how that works out.
Yeah,
And the problem is that I don't think I would make enough money for them to pay me to put on a bikini on Kick.
Yeah, probably not.
I'm not sure I would get along real well with the thong either.
No, probably not. But anyway, as I'm looking at that, I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, they didn't give him a deal. They didn't give Brumble didn't. They're screwing with you there, and I'll get into that. And Buy Me a Coffee's done some things to you. I'll get into that too. But just sticking with Kick here, so I thought women taking their clothes off, online gambling, and video games. I'm thinking to myself, well, that sounds very Russian. So let's take a look. So Kick was started in 2023 after it was kind of I guess an online war against another streaming platform, which is Twitch, that's owned by Amazon. And there were some people that were upset with the way that things were going over there. So they split off and they created this company called Kick. Well, Kick got a whole bunch of startup money. And when I say a whole bunch of startup money, I mean like $100 million in capital that got thrown at it. And I thought, all right, well, who started this? Who owns Kick, right? Let's take a look. Well, Kick is owned by a holding company called Ashwood Holdings. And Ashwood Holdings only has two people, the primary founder, CEO, COO, CFO, whatever, and another silent partner. Well, the person that is the sole CEO guy of it is a guy named Edward Craven, who's an Australian national, but not really much is known about him. And the reason that not really much is known about him is because no one had ever heard of him before up until 2023, because he had been known under an online name under something else. He was known as Edward Miroslav before that. I thought, oh, well, okay, now we're starting to get somewhere. So Ashwood Holdings is the holding company that has a partnership with the ownership of Kick. And they also have an ownership of something called Stake.com. I said, Stake.com. Yes, that's funny. That's the online gambling platform. All right. So I started to run some of those leads down, and I thought, where's all this coming from? What's all this dealing with Stake.com, this online gambling? So they put $100 million in capital to start Kick.com in 2023. By the beginning of this year, they turned that $100 million that they put into it into $2.46 billion. I thought, man, that's one hell of a return on investment. No wonder they're pulling a whole bunch of people over there. Well, if you go over there, most of it is fueled by online gambling, Stake.com, that one. And it's a lot of English speakers, a lot of Russians, some Polish, and a couple other nationalities in there, Spanish. But mostly English and Russian, and of course Russians that speak English. And they run these gambling channels. And Stake.com is a thing where an online gambling site that deals almost exclusively, not quite, but almost exclusively in cryptocurrencies, mostly Bitcoin. And if you take a look at the amount of money that's registered under Stake.com, it's quite a bit. They have a license out of Curacao, which is in the former Dutch Antilles. Jeff, didn't you say that we had some of the red cocaine money was flowing through the Dutch Antilles back in the day?
Well, that's when, the cocaine thing got going. It was the Netherlands Antilles was where the center of money laundering for the communist-controlled drug operations out of South America. And of course, that's when you had Felix Rodriguez. You had which they also ended up capturing, I think, the Cali cartel. The communists were very good at infiltrating. Felix Rodriguez's right-hand man was a DGI officer. Forget his name right now. And of course, the whole idea was to take over Colombia through corruption and drug corruption, money laundering. So, and the U.S. was the center of this, Operation Friendship of Nations, which Khrushchev had gotten started in 1960. And they discovered through testing POWs sent to the Soviet Union from the Vietnam War, American POWs, testing them, found that Americans had a special susceptibility to cocaine. So that's just the background on that.
Mm-hmm. And that place today is Curacao, and it has its independence as of 2010. Now, if you are a company such as an online gambling company and you want to open up a new online casino in Curacao, you can do so for paying a fee, a licensing fee, between 25,000 and 60,000 euros, and you agree to pay 2.4% of your net profit to Curacao. The rest of it, you don't have to pay, as in zero taxes, none. So this is a prime place for the Russians to invest in online gambling. Why don't they do it in Russia, you ask? Well, you see, there's a little bit of a problem. You cannot own an online casino in Russia. It's illegal. So they go other places, mainly Curacao and Gibraltar. Yes, I said Gibraltar. That's a British territory, by the way. So they can run all of their online gambling out of Curacao. Now, how much do the Russians run out of Curacao? And I'm not talking about the player base. I'm talking about pure economic investment. Over 30% of all online gambling that you see out of Curacao is run exclusively by the Russians. So you want to know why you can't get a partnership on Kick, Lee? That's why.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. Okay.
Buy me a coffee. You're going to run into something similar, right? What happened to you? Please tell people, for those that don't know, what happened to you with Buy Me a Coffee.
With Buy Me a Coffee, I had up to 2,800 followers on Buy Me a Coffee. And one day they started canning 40, 60, 80 people a day. And they have killed off my Buy Me a Coffee from 2,800 followers to now I just have 409. So they have basically killed off 2,400 of 2,800 followers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They had it set up that every time I would gain one, they would cancel 8.
Uh-huh.
So it's real hard to get ahead. And they'll cancel them literally within an hour. Yes,
they will. Now, they say that they are an independent, privately owned company, and that's true. They are. They are an independently, privately owned company, which being an LLC means they don't have to declare anything. They don't have to report any of their earnings or anything like that. They don't have to do it. Now, I found another holding company. I think it's YJ Investments or something like that. I can't remember the exact name of it off the top of my head at the moment, but it was something obscure like that. And this company traveled to Russia in 2016 to deal with new investors and startup people, as in like they attended a conference where they received $150,000 in seed money to get started, right? To start Buy Me a Coffee. So you want to know why you have problems with Buy Me a Coffee? Well, their silent partners probably don't like what you're doing.
This is true, too. And then, of course, we've got Rumble.
Yes, Rumble. Rumble has a partnership with RT. And they have, what was it? They took $10 million from RT. Does that sound about right?
A company that is the management company of Tim Pool and other prominent influencers on Rumble is who got the $10 million.
Yes, and it's 2-3 steps. Jeff and I were looking into this the other night. There's 2-3 steps disconnected from the Russians. But did you know that, and if I misread this, I do apologize, but did you know that Pool and his people are under a federal indictment at the moment because of that?
Yeah, they've denied it. They said that the investigation
they have denied it, yes.
Canceled.
Yeah, they have denied. So the investigation was canceled or not?
They said that it is, but we haven't seen that officially anywhere.
I see. Okay. Well, I saw that they were under federal indictment, but yeah, see, this is what happens when you take the money, right? And I say time and again, do not take the money. You think that you can take money from these people, right? And you're going to be able to say what you want, right? What just happened at Tim Pool's place a few nights ago? You heard about it, I'm sure.
Oh yes, there was somebody opened fire
Uh-huh.
on his place.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And if you
Yeah.
want to see the stack of people, there it is.
Uh-huh.
So this is
I know who
who's-
some of these people are.
right.
Yeah.
So you got Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, Dave Rubin, Lauren Southern, Matt Christensen, and Taylor Hansen. These are
Lauren
the people
Chen,
who brought the
yeah.
money in from RT. Here's
Uh-huh.
RT, and Putin put the money in. So these are all the people who are listed in it. So there's 9.7 million, a little short of 10.
So there we go. You want to know why you can't get traction? You want to know why we can't get heard or get delisted or your payouts get blocked on Rumble? This is why.
Or my pay has went to 1/10 of what it was a year ago.
Yeah.
Some of us who started, I was starting in on this, writing about this 30 years ago, and your career is blocked. People don't want to meet with you. Nobody wants to give you an opportunity. They won't take your call. You've been blacklisted without even realizing it because you want to talk about Russia, you want to talk about China, you want to talk about communism. And they don't want that discussed.
Yep. Not at all. So yeah, Rumble RT has leverage over Rumble. If you also notice that Rumble's colors are the same as RT's. And you'll also notice that RT only streams on Rumble in the United States, and RT has 2 separate channels on Rumble in the United States.
And I'm just curious, what colors do Kick have?
Green and black.
Is it the same as RT? I don't know. I might be a little colorblind.
Kick, RT, and Rumble are all the same colors.
Funny that they give themselves away with their color coding.
Yeah.
That's funny. So Dave Rubin is one who's taken their money, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting these are big names. Lauren Southern, Rubin,
Benny Johnson. Tim
yeah.
Pool.
Tim Pool. I mean, and of course, these are people who don't have any background in anything. They don't really understand political issues. They haven't really studied in any depth. They don't understand Russia or China or the KGB or the history of the Cold War. They don't understand that it's all a continuation war. Nothing has really changed. They just changed the mode of battle, and they got everybody to believe, oh, there's no more communism, there's no more KGB, there's no more USSR. Well, what are we do? What is all this now? What do they think is happening with the North Koreans fighting in Europe, shoulder to shoulder with the Russians? What do they think that is? What do they think the Russian and Chinese troops and Hamas in Venezuela, and Venezuela being a basic outpost of Cuba, and Raul Castro coming out of retirement to head the Defense Council, and what do they think it all is? They're all working together. It's a communist bloc, stupid. Do they see it? Oh, no. Oh, you're some old Cold War dinosaur. No, it's right in your face. And they will take any narrative. They will take anything, divert from that. And no, we're not going to discuss how Russia's allied and working with all the communist countries. They're not any communist countries anymore. Shut up and sit down.
It's like Ron just said, green roofs.
Yeah, this is what gets traction. You know, you were pointing this out when we were talking about this the other night, Jeff. This is what gets traction. This gets hundreds of millions of views. This gets tens of millions of dollars in corporate sponsorships thrown at it, and they don't have a clue.
Yeah, these people are all committing suicide. That's their business, because when this is all said and done, they're all dead because they're helping their enemy to destroy them with their own stupidity.
Useful idiots.
Yes.
And I love the fact that they say, oh, well, this is the price we pay for fighting evil. And I'm thinking to myself, no, son, you're collaborating with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're collaborators. That's the thing. And the thing is that it's done so, this false flag recruitment kind of thing, they don't even realize who they're really working for. I don't think they really, some of them may know. But of course, when you're getting the money and you're thinking, well, Russia's not so bad and they're really on our side and they're really Christian. Putin postures as a Christian and a conservative and a nationalist, and they think, well, he's one of our guys. So it's not, we're all for America here. Putin's really for us. I know that's completely wrong.
Oh, now come on, Jeff. You're being just a little bit too. You're being a little rough, aren't you? I mean, let's take a listen to Tucker Carlson, right? He's got something, right? He said this on his podcast just the other day. Listen to this. I'm just going to play the audio.
So there are a couple of different countries you might throw out there if you were looking purely through the lens of what's good for the United States, an America first perspective. The most obvious, of course, would be Russia. Russia! Why? Because it's the biggest country in the world. It's the biggest landmass in the world, and it has enormous mineral deposits, energy deposits. It's got a lot of oil and gas and gold and everything else you need to run a society. And it also has a formidable military, by far the biggest on that continent, on the European continent, and huge manufacturing capacity. So, like, if you needed an ally to help you in a conflict, or if you needed a country in which to stage a fight with some other country, a place to put air bases, for example, Russia would be like the best, of course. But we can't be allied with Russia because Russia's bad. They're immoral. They're bad. You might also say, well, Venezuela. Why Venezuela? Well, because they have the largest proven oil reserves in the world. They're in our hemisphere. I don't know. Lots of natural resources. It's right there. Why not make them a big ally? Talk about a place for military bases. And
there you go.
Look, he's dishonest. That is not even stupidity. I'm sorry. Nobody's that stupid to make the argument that your enemies should be your allies because they have so many resources. And it's like, you don't get to choose your enemies. Your enemies choose you. They want to destroy the United States because they want to be number one. You're an American, stupid. These countries want to knock off your country. Oh, well, we'll just ally with them. That'll be good. Oh, okay, we'll just ally with Hitler. Let him have Europe. That's fine. We'll ally with him. Then he'll have Canada next and Mexico. And well, you're taking appeasement to an all totally new level, but it's not even honest, because where has there ever been the option for us to ally, to be friends with these people? We tried to be friends with them. We helped them. At the end of the Cold War, we gave them food. We gave them investment. And what did they do? British Petroleum the executives weren't even allowed in Russia. They yanked their visas.
We gave them Lend-Lease.
Huge amounts into Russian oil. Yeah.
We gave them Lend-Lease during the Second World War. We allied with them during the Second World War. And what did they do? As soon as the war was over, they took over all of Eastern Europe with everything we had.
And they invaded Manchuria, and they got all the Japanese weapons and handed them over to Mao Zedong. Took over China through Mao Zedong. I mean, when are these people on our side? And then all the subversion they discover in the 1940s and 50s, it's all the same. Look, the institutions don't change that much. There's not been a revolution in Russia. They pulled down Felix Dzerzhinsky and Lenin's statues in 1991. They pulled them down very gently so they didn't get broken, and now they put them all back up again.
Yeah, they're going back up. Yeah. When does St. Petersburg get renamed to Leningrad? When does
Any
that get
day
renamed?
now. Any day now.
Any
They
day now.
announced Sovietization. It's going to be any day now. And the fact of Putin running back and forth to Beijing all the time. I mean, the fact of the matter is they're supporting Iran. They're aligned with China, a communist country. People say, "Oh, China's not communist." Well, yeah, this bookish Marxism-Leninism, where you have to follow certain things. Well, Marx said there's no Marxist dogma. It's run by the Communist Party, stupid. Communism is a utopia that can't exist anywhere. So it's never existed anywhere. But the Communist Party and the Communist movement and the Communist arms and weapons and the Communist revolution, it does exist. And it's here trying to undermine us now. And we won't, we don't, the word KGB, the word communism has been taken away from us. We are not even allowed to use the name of our enemy. We're not allowed to name them. No, we have to join them. We have to make them our ally. We have to be, kinder and gentler. Why do we need to make war with them? They have so many wonderful resources. Oh, Tucker Carlson. No, Tucker Carlson, you're a traitor and you're a liar. And you are not even attempting to be honest. Socrates, the number one thing Socrates taught his followers was responsibility. When you have millions of people listening to you, you have a responsibility for the truth, not to mouth enemy lies across the media, confusing and disorienting Americans. And that's what he's doing, disorienting and confusing Americans.
And now you know why we call him that stupid fucker, Tucker.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't give him, I think he's smart. I think he's doing it on purpose. I think that little Boy Scout act is a fake. I think he's completely fake. It's cynical. I don't believe he's stupid for a minute. And if he is, he has a responsibility to shut up and sit down, and he hasn't met that responsibility. And that's evil. To not know right from wrong. No, he doesn't get a pass. Not in my book.
I'm with you.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, sir.
All
So,
right.
and he's not the only one. I don't give any of these jokers a pass. You know, the people that he gives mic time to, I don't give any of them a pass.
Scott
You know, the
Ritter,
whole-
I don't give a pass.
Scott
to that
Ritter,
child
absolutely
molester.
not.
I don't
Well,
give
Scott
a,
Ritter
I-
is harassing people in Ukraine now. In fact, he was just harassing a young woman in Ukraine that we actually follow. I think it's Kate in Ukraine. And she responded to him, Scott, I'm an adult woman. What are you doing trying to talk to me? You know,
Yeah, very good.
you know.
Yeah, and Colonel Douglas McGregor. Look, what a freaking clown. He's a military analyst. On day 10 of this war in Ukraine, he said the war was over, the Ukrainians have lost. It's almost 4 years later, and the Ukrainians haven't lost. Sorry, Douglas. It didn't happen. You're a liar. He is a military analyst. He knows what he's been saying is a lie. Why does he do it?
I just love the fires that are burning in Moscow tonight. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't.
No, we haven't seen
It's-
that
they're
yet.
just, you know, it's
I saw them
it's-
2 nights ago. You telling me there's new ones?
Right. Oh yeah.
Okay.
And it's very interesting how I just keep going, look at that on the map. And a few days later or a few weeks later, it's on fire. You know, and I told Putin months ago, you ain't seen nothing yet, buddy. The fireworks haven't even started in Moscow yet. And they haven't. They're even going to get, there's even going to be more fireworks before it's all over with. But yeah, Moscow was hit again last night by Ukrainian drones. And they're even going to get hit even more and more and more. They are just getting warmed up.
Do you know,
All the places that they're going to hit.
do you know the thing that Jeff was mentioning about how we can't mention Russia, we can't mention the KGB, we can't do any of that stuff. You know, and just that's on the American side. On the European side, right? The Europeans will call out, obviously, with what they're doing and, you know, trying to rebuild their military and their arms. They have to call out Russia as a threat. But the other side to that is the airport closures that are happening over here because of unidentified drones. We can't even say that they're Russian drones. Where in the hell else are they coming from? Of course they're coming from Russia. Why can't we say that? Why can't people be told that?
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
They don't want people to know the truth.
No, they don't. And it's
Yeah, this is the blockade on the truth that we've had all these years with the fall of the Soviet Union, with Gorby mania, and then drunken Boris Yeltsin. But nobody really read the subtext. Nobody really looked carefully. When did the Soviet Union surrender? So Gorbachev himself pulled down the flag, the hammer and sickle flag, and allowed Gorbachev, a candidate Politburo member, to step in as an alleged Democrat. When did they stop building ICBMs? And I want to ask you this, Lee, the Sarmat test failure, the failure of some of the recent SS-27 tests. What do you make of that? Are these fake missile test failures, or are they really having trouble with their missiles?
They're really having trouble with their missiles. This is what I have said about their nuclear program. It costs, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to maintain these things, to upgrade them, to remove the explosive material from around the nuclear device, to replace it, to replace the detonators, to replace the explosive material. Because when a nuclear bomb goes off, you got two choices, okay? You can either take the fissile material and slam it into a larger ball of fissile material at a high rate, or you can compress it all in. The thing is, when you compress it all in, it all has to compress at the exact same time. If one goes off a little slow, two go off a little slow, then it doesn't compress, it squishes. And then it's not really a nuclear bomb then. It's a dirty bomb. You'll still get a yield, but it won't be anything like it was before. And it'll be really, really, really dirty. And if more than a couple aren't perfect, well, then it won't go off at all. It's just a big boom. And you just made a dirty bomb in that area. So rocket engines are the same way. Solid rocket fuel is the same way. Hoses, turbines, all kinds of things, even in liquid propellant, the turbines have to be lubricated. The stuff has to be pulled out, repaired, and put back in. Russia has not maintained their nuclear stockpile. And so not only have they not maintained their nuclear stockpile, they haven't maintained the rockets that launch it, the launchers that launch it, or the rockets that carry it, or the launchers that launch it, the telemetry, the communications equipment. Nothing has been maintained. It's just like the tires that were 20 years old on those trucks, all of the Panzer S1s that were coming into Ukraine in the opening stages of the
invasion.
And
this is really what the Ukraine war is partly about, because it isn't just the money it's the people. If you don't have those engineers, if you don't have the scientists, if you don't have the brains, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you have a bunch of cavemen with a bunch of money, they're not going to be able to make a nuclear weapon work. So basically, you need those people with the know-how, and a lot of those people were Ukrainians. And I know some Ukrainians in Ukraine, and they said, Moscow keeps calling. They want me to work for them. Even after this war has started, they've been trying to lure them with promises of money and whatever to come back. And these Ukrainians are like, no, I'm not going back there to work in their science labs and there as an engineer for them. So
and this is the danger.
Yeah.
If Ukraine falls, this is the danger. Is they're gonna get all those scientists and those people back.
Yeah, I wonder if the rocket industry and their nuclear industry. I mean, Sakharov was a Ukrainian, wasn't he? Or am I remembering that wrong?
I think he might have been. Yeah.
But I know a lot of the scientists were Ukrainians. A lot of the defense engineers were Ukrainians in the Soviet Union. A disproportionate amount of their best scientific and engineering brains were Ukrainian. And so if you don't have Ukraine back into the Union, as they call it, the Union state, you are not able. Here you had this giant, in 2014, before 2014, the Ukrainians were still helping service. The Russians were outsourcing a lot of their work and their defense industry to Ukraine before the Euromaidan revolution. Once that happened, that stopped. Helicopter engines, all kinds of things were made in Ukraine. That all stopped. So, but the high-end stuff, the nukes and the missiles, it's interesting, these failed missile tests. Very, very interesting.
He was not Ukrainian, by the way.
Okay, he wasn't. All right.
No,
okay, and my point on that is, it doesn't matter even if they had the high-end scientists. They could still have all the high-end scientists. But if they fail to do the maintenance, it's not going to work. So that's the issue that I've told everybody that Russia has. And Russia has not maintained their stuff. They haven't maintained their tanks. They haven't maintained their missiles. They haven't maintained their aircraft. They haven't even changed the tires on their trucks. They lost 30 or 40 Panzer S1s coming into Ukraine simply because the tires blew out on the truck, because the tires were dry rotted. They didn't even bother to change the tires. And the worst part about it was, when they did change the tires 7 years ago, Did they use good Michelin tires? Did they use American tires? Did they use European tires? No. They bought the cheapest poly tires that they could get from China. And so those tires were good for maybe a year or two, not 7 to 10 years. And that's why the sidewalls blew out on them and they were all dry rotted. So
Question, Lee.
Yes, sir.
Their maintenance, right? You're talking about their maintenance, right? And I that makes perfect sense. What about their new missile production? What about the new things they roll off the line?
The new missiles that they're producing have a quality control problem. And so it's just like the quality control problem with the lithium batteries that the United States was getting from China. The issue was when you make the lithium, you have to grind it to such a fine powder. It has to be almost like a talc. The problem was when the Chinese would make that fine material powder that's like a talc, it would be like a talc, except for a small percentage of that had granulars in it. And those granulars were above that talc. So when you spread the talc across the large surface, everything's perfect, but it only takes one granular to make a failure. And that's why they were having all those problems with hoverboards and other scooters and things of that nature catching on fire when they were charging them. Because when they were putting the lithium onto the plates, 90% of it was the correct talcum powder. 10% of it, 5% of it, 3% of it at best had granulars in it. And it only takes one granular in the entire battery for the battery to catch fire because it arcs between the plates. And so that's what would happen. That's what would catch all of those scooters and all of those other things on fire. That's one of the problems they had with the original Tesla batteries. So there's a lot of Chinese lithium batteries were catching fire because they don't have the quality control. The Russians have the exact same problem. The Russians are getting explosive materials from China. The Russians are getting explosive materials from North Korea. Hell, half of the shells coming in from North Korea won't fire. The other half of the shells that are coming in from North Korea, the gunpowder is so inconsistent that you can't tell where the shell is going to land. Most of them land short because it doesn't provide the explosive power that it's supposed to. You could affix a barrel so it's pointed at the exact same spot, and you could put 100 rounds into that artillery piece, and no 2 rounds would land in the same spot. In the United States, if you do that, every single one of those rounds will land in that same 55-gallon drum. Doing that over in Ukraine with what the Russians are firing from North Korea at the Ukrainians, those shells won't land within a football field's distance of each other.
And this explains why the Russians
why they-
lost 1.5 million men
Absolutely.
getting wounded in this fight, because and the Ukrainians have probably only lost a couple 100,000
Right.
is because of this. Yeah.
And the
And
Russians
this also
themselves.
explains why they flatten towns. They flatten the towns because they can't hit anything. So they
They
just
can
level
hit a
everything.
town because it's big enough to hit, but
Yeah.
anything else they can't hit.
Well, they have a hard time
Yeah.
hitting the town too. But I've got interviews with Russians that were captured that said, "There's no way we're going to win the war. We can't hit the same building. We can line the artillery up on that building that's 3 miles away, 5 miles away, or whatever, and we can fire all day long and never hit that building.
Thank
The
you.
shells will fall short, not go off, or fly over it.
Thank you.
We can't hit that building at all.
Kim
So,
Jong-un. Thank you, Kim
absolutely.
Jong-un, for these wonderful artillery rounds.
Same
But they're a
problem with
success. They're a success, comrade.
See, the thing is, where they're successful at is subverting our society and getting people to believe their narratives. What they're unsuccessful at is actually following through in the kinetic warfare end. I mean, if they Lee, if they follow through on attacking Europe, they're going to trip over their own shoelaces? Is that what you think?
Yes. The problem with the Russian military, the biggest problem with the Russian military is they have no combined arms training. They cannot.
They just have the concept, but they aren't able to
I don't
implement
think they have the
it.
concept.
Well, they do have it because they call their armies combined arms armies, but they don't have
Right,
the
but
concept.
they're combined as in we stuff them all on the battlefield at the same time.
Yeah, we with the tanks are supposed to attack with infantry alongside, and that's what
Exactly.
they didn't do in the Battle of Kiev, and it's why they
Right.
lost all their tanks.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. But they
This is why you would see them like they would lay tank mines. I would see squads go in and they would lay anti-tank mines in a town in Ukraine when they crossed the border, and then a couple hours later, a tank brigade would come through and drive over their mines and kill everybody.
drive over their own mines. The Russians would drive over their own mines.
Yes.
And this is what I talk about combined. Okay, let me show you. Hold on, I'll show you right here. This is a radio. This is a radio. This is a radio. Now, in the Russian military is like the National Guard in the United States. Each individual military group is funded by their own region. Their ammunition, their uniforms, their radio equipment, their bulletproof vests, all of that comes from each individual region. So you would have the Virginia National Guard, the North Carolina National Guard, the South Carolina National Guard, the Georgia National Guard, the Texas National Guard. You have all of these National Guards. The issue is there's no standardization. So you will have one Russian unit using this radio. You will have another Russian unit using this radio. And you will have another Russian unit using this radio. The problem is none of these radios talk to each other. So how are you supposed to have combined arms, combined tactics, going out and fighting together on the battlefield when they can't even communicate with each other? You have from the command down to the battalion level, sure, you got those microwave units that'll talk back and forth, and it'll go out from battalion to battalion. Okay, but when it filters down to the lower units, they're like rugby teams. They hate each other. One National Guard unit hates the other National Guard unit. So let's say that the Virginia National Guard is out there fighting, and the West Virginia National Guard is out there fighting, and all of a sudden the West Virginia National Guard is under attack. They call for help. Do you think the Virginia National Guard is going to go help the West Virginia National Guard? Hell no. Why would we want to help those motherfuckers? Why would we risk our lives to go help them? Hell no, we're not going to help them. So when the Ukrainians come in and assault them, these units here don't go help them. They're wiped out. Then this unit later will be called in to go in and attack, and that's why 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours later, there will be another attack or another assault or a meat wave that moves in. There's no combined arms. They don't know how to coordinate.
This is the Russian operational art of war concept.
Absolutely. This is what they do every day.
Yeah,
this is why they're getting their ass kicked by Ukraine.
Yeah. Their battle management focuses on brigades and divisions.
Correct.
They don't focus on the tactical battlefield. They just say it's going to take care of itself. They don't. So they focus on this operational level. This is what they did in World War II. This is just standard practice. They think in terms of their military war games. They've got the divisions and the brigades. They don't want to know about the companies and the platoons.
Yeah,
So my question, but I have a follow-up question to what you're describing here. So if you're talking just about the Russians, so when you start throwing in all these different nationalities that they're importing to bring into these training facilities in Russia and in Belarus that we're seeing, how much more does that complicate the situation that's already complicated?
They're the leader of the meat wave.
I see. Okay. So they put that. So they're just the meat wave in general. So they're not even. Okay. All right. I just wanted.
They're not even incorporated into. They don't teach them how to fire missiles. They barely teach them how to turn the safety off on a machine gun.
Yeah, but they teach them how to drive a vehicle. That's about it.
Right.
And that's not even all of them.
And that's just to drive through a minefield. That's just to clear a path through a minefield is why they'll teach them how to drive that vehicle. So they can go in there, they will fill that vehicle with explosives and try to have that foreigner drive that vehicle full of explosives into a Ukrainian position.
And that'll supposedly detonate a whole series of mines.
Correct. And he'll hit the first one out there, and he'll never even make it. And now they've lost all those explosives, they've lost the vehicle, and they've lost that piece of meat that they got from some other country that they're not going to pay for. It's absolutely a shame.
That is
insane.
So
So their philosophy, the Russian philosophy is you fire with artillery until you devastate the area. Then you move in and mop up. If you meet resistance, you back up, fire artillery again. And then when you think you've killed everybody, you move in and mop up.
That's World War One.
That's how Russia fights.
Yeah.
To
That's
this
World War
day,
One.
that is
Battle
how
of
Russia
Verdun.
fights.
Yeah, this was the Battle of Verdun. You do the artillery, the Germans would bombard the French positions, then they'd move in and the French would shoot them down, and then they would bombard again and then try again. Then they came up with flamethrowers. They used phosgene gas in that battle. That was the first use of poison gas, I think, of that kind of poison gas. But yeah, this is the World War One type tactics. And of course, it isn't effective in taking ground.
No, it's cost them $1 million. I mean, 1 million lives, excuse me.
Yeah, a million men.
Million lives, millions of dollars, which they don't seem to even care about either.
Billions of dollars.
It does. They don't care about either one of those things because if we're going back and looking at the buildups in other places, they don't care about that.
Well, the system
what Putin is doing is selective genocide. Okay, and I've already went through and proven this. I did all the research to prove this. Me and Grok spent about 6 hours one night. And what we found out was, what we researched was, I said that I thought that Putin was selectively drafting people from areas that Putin didn't like, from peoples that Putin didn't like. And Grok went through and found all of the groups, all of the provinces that the Russians were drafting people from, and cross-referenced that with statements that Putin had made that were derogatory towards the region. And at the end of the 6 hours, Grok was like, "You're absolutely right. This is a genocide against the Russian people by Vladimir Putin. That's why he's not pulling people out of St. Petersburg. That's why he's not pulling people out of Moscow. That's why he's not pulling people out of his hometown. He's only pulling people from regions that he thinks are subhuman or not advantageous, the poorest regions, the most disliked regions. It's like people in New York saying, we're going to go to war, but we're only pulling people from Louisiana.
Well, what's interesting is Putin's great popularity is in the poorer regions, and in Moscow and Leningrad are famously where the most Russian liberals are.
Yes, but in Moscow and St. Petersburg is where the media is. And if you start pulling people out of there, the media is going to talk about it. So
Russia is the most sophisticated. Russia is an overgrown Bulgaria, but they have this these elite areas, Russia and St. Petersburg, where everything really is done, where all the sophistication is. You could say Russia is a backward country, but it has a small advanced country inside that backward country. Same thing with China. China is a largely backward country with a smaller advanced country inside of it. And there's a kind of a bifurcation between the advanced country and the less advanced country. So that when you go to Moscow, people think, they're, like Tucker Carlson goes to Moscow, the metro is wonderful, this city is modern, the stores are full, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
The food is wonderful. It's I don't know what the problem is. Why does everybody see it as such a bad place?
You go outside Moscow 60 kilometers or 100 kilometers and they don't have running water, or they have a outhouse instead of a toilet.
And if you want to visit those places that are further outside of that, you can take the train to go to those places, but you can only do it at night.
And with a minder.
Yes, that's right. You can
And-
only do it at night where you can't see anything. That's the
And
point.
the definition of running water in a Russian house just means there's water. It doesn't have to be potable water. It doesn't have to run through pipes. A garden hose pumping out water that looks like mud is considered running water in Russia. Not drinkable. You can't even take a bath in it, but that's considered running water in Moscow. A hand pump. So if you have a cistern and water runs off your roof and goes down into a cistern in your basement and you pump it up with a hand pump, that's running water in Russia.
Yeah, it's pretty, and but what is amazing is, and this is what socialism has done to the country, and they've made a barrack state where the people live in a miserable, look, the standard of living of blacks in South Africa in 1990 was higher than the standard of living of the average Russian.
And we were going over the amount of money, just in average income. The average Russian lives on is it $500 a month, and they spend more than half of that on food.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, it's something like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
and then the rest of that has to go to
is $1,000 a month, a good salary in Russia,
Yeah.
and people just can't find those jobs. It's very, very hard.
Well, if you sign up and you get put into the meat wave, you get $1,200 to $3,400 a month, depending on what you do.
But you won't receive it because you'll be dead before
Yes.
payday.
Well, that's the thing is, that's one of the things is a lot of these guys. I mean, the ones that survive, they'll send that money back home to those poorer areas, to their families or whatever that are back there, and then that'll get spent on like high-end Chinese electronics or whatever. And the other thing that these guys will spend the money on is what I was saying earlier, online gambling.
A woman that has a job in Russia sleeps with her boss.
You mean
Yes,
it has a
actually,
good job in Russia?
No, a job. A woman
If you
who has a job in Russia sleeps with her boss. That's how she got the job.
there's a
That's how she
book that
kept-
explains this.
That's how she kept the job. When I used to work with a military contractor, I used to work with Siemens, and not Siemens, Sperry. And Sperry had a facility that made pieces for periscopes. And one of the women that worked at Sperry with those periscopes, when I was doing some things with the Navy, she was a Russian. She had defected from Russia. And she told me that any woman who works in Moscow or St. Petersburg, if they have a job, they are sleeping with their boss. She said, I know. I had to do it for 20 years. And she said, my ex-husband used to find me on the subway train on my way home. He would wait in the subway terminal, and when I would get off the subway to walk home, he would rape me in the subway station. And she said I would scream for help, and the people would walk by and do nothing. And she said he would do that every week or two, and he did that for years. On the way home from work, he would be in the metro station, I would get off, and he would rape me. So she said, I saved money for 6 months, and I hired the biggest man that I could hire, and he would meet me at the station before my stop. And he would get on to the subway with me, and he would ride the subway with me to my subway station, and he would walk me to my house. And she said, on the 7th day that he that he met me, my husband tried to rape me. She said that man came and beat the shit out of my ex-husband, and he never came back again. And she said it was the best $80 I ever spent.
There's a book
$80
that
for a week of being escorted on the subway. That's
Yeah, because
pretty
all he had to do
expensive.
was get on one subway and ride it to the next subway stop and get off, and then walk her to her house, which was like 3 blocks away.
Yeah.
And so she said,
Yeah,
I
the
spent
wonderful
$80. She
society-
was giving him $10 a day.
all you Vatniks out there that think Russia's so great, such a great Christian society, why don't you go over there and enjoy the treatment of women over there? Why
Yeah,
don't you go enjoy that?
there's a book that explains some of what you're talking about, Lee. I've mentioned it to you before, Jeff. It's this book here. It's called The Russian Mind. And this explains, there's a section in here about, quote, intimacy. And it explains how things are really done over there. And it kind of follows along with what you were saying, Lee.
Yeah, I just had no comprehension that that's how Russia was until she explained that to me.
Violence against
Yeah.
women is quite common in Russia. So.
Yeah, it is. So, and is it true that I've read the statistic before and I've seen it in different places. Is it true the average Russian woman has had 4 abortions? Does that sound about right?
Well, it was under the Soviet Union. The average was 7 in the late 80s.
7.
It was 7
God.
abortions in the late 80s. Yeah, that statistic stuck in my mind from back then. I
Good
don't know.
Lord.
I know the number of I know the abortion rate in Russia has declined since then because of the available of contraceptives that are more effective. But basically, whatever contraceptives they were using in the Soviet Union weren't effective, and so abortion. And of course, abortion was in demand in the Soviet Union from right after the Bolshevik Revolution. Why? Because the women were starving, and they didn't want to have a baby when they were starving. The food was so scarce, they didn't know how they were going to feed a baby. And so this is where the demand of abortion in Russia, and of course, initially the Bolsheviks, yeah, abortion's fine. Well, they stopped having babies in the early 1920s in the free love era of the Soviet state. And of course, they started telling the doctors, don't give them the abortions.
Do y'all remember when they had the AIDS epidemic in Russia and Ronald Reagan agreed to give Russia condoms?
I
don't
don't. I was
remember
I
that
was a
one.
kid, so yeah,
Okay,
I don't
so
remember that.
Ronald Reagan agreed to give the Russians millions of condoms because they had an AIDS epidemic breaking out in Russia. And so the White House, Ronald Reagan, called up Trojan Condom and ordered 5 million condoms, or whatever many million it was, in size extra large. Then they had the packages made up and had it written in Russian, made in the USA, size small. And that's what they delivered to the Russians. And these condoms are like this fucking big around. That's what Ronald Reagan delivered. I used to have a pack of them written in Russian. And that's
What was the logic of calling them small when they were large?
that's yeah.
That's pretty mean.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that
but it's like saying, here's America,
Yeah,
made in
yeah.
America. Here you go. Yeah.
It's an extra large condom.
Yeah.
They were labeled in Russian,
Yeah.
size small, made in America.
It's just such a joke.
Well, that's what Reagan did. So there was a few things that Reagan did that I thought was hilarious, and that was one of them.
Well, I guess they want to come after us still. So, Lee, all the preparations that Russia's making. So your thinking is that they can't really follow through on all this. That in a sense they're trying their best, but the leadership probably is not being told how bad things are on the ground.
No, that's proven that the leadership is not being told. In fact, the maps that the leadership is being showed are not the actual maps. So one of the guys who was captured used to make the maps. And he said that when the leadership would come, they would use a totally different map. And on that map, they would claim that they had made gains into cities that they had never even been in to try to make it look good for that leader. And then the days after the leader would leave, well, guess what? They were going to send meat wave after meat wave after meat wave into those cities to try to take them to fulfill what they had stated on the map that was never true. He said there were times when the map showed that they were kilometers further into Ukrainian territory than what they were actually in, and that they had said that their losses were less than what they actually were. And so that's why the guys didn't want to fight. The other thing he said was that leaders were always last. So the way that they would go into battle is the leader would always stay in the rear. The newest, youngest guy would lead. And the more experience you had and the more leadership you had, the further back in the line you were. That way, when the Ukrainians would assault, the front people would get killed and the people in the rear would retreat. And that's how you had some people who had been on the line for 6 months, a year, or years. They were in the rear, and when the assault would come, they would retreat, and the guys in the front would die. So the guys who were going and doing the fighting had been there the least period of time. So the new guy goes first. And that's how they made their rankings. Crazy, huh?
It's a pretty crazy way to wage war. So if the Russians tried to do an offensive where they used missiles and nuclear weapons with their combined arms, they would basically fail in a lot of the missile launches.
Correct.
They would not destroy what they were to destroy. Their forces would hit the front, and God only knows if they would ever break through or get stuck like they are in Ukraine.
It would be just like what you have in Ukraine. It's the envelopment, the first envelopment. That's why I said they could take the Suwalki Gap. They could close those ports, and they could flood across the line into Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. So they could take the Baltics. But, and then trying to get them out, well, that's like trying to get cockroaches out. They go everywhere. So,
Well, how many of their nuclear weapons will fail?
I would say more than half.
Okay, but that still leaves
Even
40% hits.
even the ones we've looked at in Kaliningrad, just north of the Polish border. So the Iskanders, for example, the short range, the intermediate range, the not the ICBMs. That's something different. I mean, Jeff's talked about the low trajectory launches before, and I still believe that's an option for the Russians, considering how far we've seen them deployed forward. But the Iskanders, do they have the same problems with the Iskanders, the short ranges, the tactical nukes? They have the same issues with them?
The nuclear warhead is what's going to have the problem. It's the nuclear warhead
And this is
itself.
why they haven't been able to use the miniaturized vacuum warheads. They probably don't work either.
No, and neither does their nuclear propulsion. Look, if you're going to do the nuclear missile, that's basically a flying Chernobyl, is what some people have called it. You have to have consistency within the radioactive material.
And they can't even mill the radioactive material
they can't
correctly.
even do it. They can't even make ball bearings. This is the problem.
Did you say flying Chernobyl? I'm sorry.
So
it's a flying Chernobyl.
they're just
I'm
going
not
to
the one that
create.
coined it. That somebody else is.
So by launching
somebody
their
else did.
offensive, they're going to create a radioactive mess in East and Central Europe, and they're basically going to fail by the time they get to Germany.
Yeah, I don't even think they'll get across to Germany. I don't think they'll make it halfway through Poland once NATO and other countries respond. I think, look, how do I put this? They imagine that you have a caveman who's been beating his wife with a club for years. And all of a sudden, he comes and he wants to fight Buck Rogers. And he thinks he's going to be successful because he's been beating his wife with a club and beating his neighbors with a club. A T-72 is a hell of a tank when the other country doesn't have a tank. Same thing with a T-55. If the other country doesn't have tanks, hey, this is a badass tank. But when the tank on the other side has superior sensors, superior accuracy, superior range, superior velocity, superior explosives in the warhead, superior communications for situational awareness, superior speed on the battlefield, superior maneuverability, superior situational awareness. When all of that is combined, you have an example of just like we did in Desert Storm, whereas that the Iraqis were equipped with T-72s and T-55s and things of that nature. The U.S. knew that the Iraqis didn't have thermal imagers. The U.S. knew that the Iraqis had infrared illuminators. So when the Americans came within the range of the Abrams, but beyond the range of the T-55s, the Americans started firing smoke canisters at the Iraqis. What did the Iraqis do? They wanted to be able to see through the smoke. How did they do that? They turned on their infrared illuminators. The infrared illuminators created heat. That heat identified exactly where the turret was because the infrared illuminator was located beside the barrel. So when we fired the smoke canisters in, they turned their infrared illuminators on. Those infrared illuminators made white dots across the screen. The Abrams picked out which ones of those targets that they were going to attack. Every single Abrams took picked one of those dots on the horizon, and when the commander yelled fire, a column of M1 Abrams fired simultaneously, and when they fired simultaneously, a column of Russian tanks exploded on the other side. It was just a couple of those waves, and every single one of those tanks was gone, and not a single American tank was hit. Why? They were out of range. Why? Because the Russians couldn't, or the Iranians could not see the American tanks. And why was the U.S. so accurate in knowing which tanks to hit? Because every single one of them had turned on an illuminator and told us which one of those tanks were actually active. That is the advantage of superior technology. The Russians have never fought that. The closest the Russians have ever done to fighting the Americans is the Battle of Conoco Fields. Are you familiar with that battle? You're muted.
You're muted, Jeff.
Where was that battle? Which war?
The battle was over in the Middle East. And the Russians, along with Wagner and along with some local Muslims, decided that they were going to go in and take over Conoco Fields. The Russians moved in. The Americans picked up the phone and said, "Hey, we're over here. Is that you approaching?" The Russians were like, "No, it's not us. We're not coming. It's not us." The Russians said, "Look, whoever's coming, we're going to blow the shit out of them. Are you sure it's not you?" The Russians, "No, it's not us. We're not. No Russians are involved." The Americans said, "Okay, if that's not you, we're going to fuck them up." And they hung up the phone. Immediately, the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Army, and Delta Force went in and obliterated, in a very short period of time, every single one of those tanks, every single one of those armored personnel carriers, and they killed everybody there with the exception of just a few, and they blew up every single vehicle with the exception of one, and the reason they didn't blow up that one was because they wanted to capture it for intelligence. The Battle of Conoco Fields was the last time the Russians ever came up against the Americans. Not a single American was hit. Not a single aircraft was hit. Not a single vehicle was hit. In fact, only one contractor was slightly injured, and he was a local who got hit by a piece of shrapnel or some kind of shit, but it didn't hurt him significantly at all. And the U.S. wiped out all of those people in Wagner, who was a premier military organization, because they consider Wagner like special operations. The U.S. wiped them out. That was the last time the Russians went head-to-head with the Americans, and the Americans cleaned their clock in a matter of minutes. So
now,
if the
talking
US,
about, you mentioned the American tanks versus Russian tanks in a superior range of the American tanks. In the Battle of 73 Easting was an engagement in the First Gulf War in 1991 where U.S. M1A1 Abrams faced Soviet-made Iraqi tanks. This was a Republican Guards unit. T-55, T-62, and T-72 Ms. And they had the T-55As, plus Chinese Type 59, 69 copies. So this is what they were going, and they ran into each other in the fog, and we wiped them out. I don't think we lost a tank.
no, we didn't. We didn't.
I don't think we lost a
single
tank. We wiped out this Republican at point blank range in the fog, because here the range didn't matter. And what really mattered there was our gunners were trained to be more efficient. to fire quickly. They were not trained. They didn't drill in this firing. And so we were shot. And as they were trying to line up their shots, they were just dead. And so there again, American training defeated the Russian tank with the Iraqi crews. So my guess is the Russian crews may not be any better than the Iraq. In fact, the Iraqi Republican Guard crews might even be better than the way they train Russian tankers now.
And if I'm not mistaken, my old boss was the leader of that, General McMasters.
Right, that's right. I believe McMasters was the leader
that
in
was
that
my
battle.
old boss.
Yeah.
In fact,
So this was,
General McMasters said that I had created the holy grail of battlefield energy.
Wow, that's quite a compliment. Well, and you see, it was about, they insisted that these Americans go through this grueling training, and it saved their lives, and it gave them the victory in this tank battle.
Yeah, it was.
So, yeah.
It was a hell of a victory.
Yeah,
And
it
that's a
was.
different battle than the one I was talking about. But that's another prime example.
Yeah,
The Battle of
73
73
Easting. So
Easting.
range and also training, so the quality of your men, the amount of training, and of course the Americans have superb training. This is what our big advantage is, and we've got good equipment. Our disadvantage is the numbers. We don't always have the numbers, and we're not backstopped by enough ammunition. I mean, I've heard, Lee, that NATO doesn't have enough ammunition to last more than 4 or 5 days. Is that true?
No. We've got
You don't
way
think
more
that's
than enough to last 4 or 5
Okay.
days.
All right.
The number is closer to 3 months
Oh,
until we would
well,
start to have,
Daniel-
and that's heavy fighting for 3 months.
heavy fighting for 3
We've
months.
got bunkers after bunker after bunker after bunker after bunker. We would have a hard time delivering it to the enemy in that period of time. We would be in very, very, very heavy fighting before we
So-
even consider losing anything.
Yeah.
But to my point is, if you want to be successful on the battlefield, you have to be able to do 3 things. You have to be able to do them simultaneously, and you have to be able to do them well. You have to be able to shoot, move, and communicate, and operate as one. And if you do that, you'll be successful on the battlefield. If you can't do any of those 3, if you're missing just one, you're bound to fail. The problem that the Russians have is they can't do any of them. They don't have the range. They don't have the communications. They don't have tracking systems in their vehicles like we have in the United States. We have Blue Force Tracker, and now for our soldiers on the battlefield, we have Mafia and Net Warrior, things of that nature. The Russians are not equipped with that. They have 1 or 2 little pieces, and that's it.
They don't have any like ATAC systems or anything like that at all.
No, they don't have a comprehensive ATAC system like we do.
Oh my God.
Lee, are we gonna have questions and answers?
Yes, we need
now-
to do Q&A.
Yeah, so
Running
folks,
quite
if you've
late
got
now.
questions, now's the time to put them in the chat. If it's not a question, please refrain from putting it in the chat. So let's see what questions we've got here. Give it a minute for them to catch up, and we'll see.
Do we want to do social media plugs? I know people have been asking what our social medias are, so I thought we'd plug those up.
Sure, go right ahead.
So I'll just put them in the chat, and then you can paste them over there if that's easier, rather than just trying.
I'm seeing the question of what is a drill box. I think you mean what is a kill box, not a drill box. And a kill box is a specific grid on a map. And that box, that zone, I think it's like a kilometer by a kilometer or whatever it is, that kill box, anything that comes into that box, if that's assigned to you, you're responsible for killing anything inside of it. And that's a kill box. If it's outside of that box, that's not you. But the moment it comes across that line, it's you. I don't produce drones anymore. I haven't produced drones in 20 years, so I can't do a class on producing drones. I would have to get somebody else to do that. I'll see if I can find somebody else that will. But I don't do drones, so I can't help you there. Also, here is all of the social media links. I will put that into the chat. Right there it is. And then I want to put that somewhere else here. stand by. I want to email that to myself so I can put that in on this. In the information on the show. Why are American GOP and especially Democrat politicians cooperating with this Sino-Russian world domination plan? I think they're ignorant and they want power. Those are my two answers. Jeff, Johnny?
People are careerists, so you get a leg up if you cooperate with the Russians or their intelligence. They have false flag recruitment. They also have money. So it's they've understood that talented people need support, and in America, especially the conservatives or patriotic people don't really. There's not a real network that supports their careers, and the network that exists, the Russians can penetrate it. They can determine who goes up and who doesn't. Why did Tucker Carlson, why was he at CNN and at Fox News? Why is Laura Ingraham pro-Russian? Why is she there? Why did Trump become president? Why do certain people get a lot of media attention and get a lot of money? The Russians finesse that, I think, and they help their own. So if you compromise yourself, make a deal with the devil, you're going to have a leg up.
That's also true in even if you don't go the route of politics. If you go into academia, like you were attempting to do, Jeff, you know, if you had played ball with them, then all of those doors would have been opened up for you. You
Well, I
would have
I would have been wealthy and had any position I wanted, and I wouldn't have even had to work very hard.
Yeah, and I mean I'm still looking into this. I mean, this is kind of one of the other things we were talking earlier about the involvement that the Russians have in all the influence operations. The social media stuff, the online streaming platforms, the gambling stuff. And I mean, if we start looking into the entertainment industry, of course, you know, the Hollywood movie production, television production, you know, like you were talking about some of the people that are on TV, you know, how do they get these illustrious careers? Well, they carry the right agendas, right? All those doors open up for them, and they're too
That's right.
limited, I guess, is the right word, to be polite, to understand what the bigger picture here is. And that's why we take $10 million.
Well, it's
you know,
just like
not we,
this,
but
this
you know what I
chart that Lee showed, or you showed earlier,
Yeah.
which showed all
Yeah.
these very famous, well-to-do podcasters getting money through RT to support them in their podcasting. I mean, you've got the reach of that money, and you've got the incentive, and now you're living high off the hog, and they're going to threaten you. We're going to pull this money, or maybe there's going to be a machine gun hitting your front door. You know, a submachine gun hitting your front door if you don't. So I think didn't that happen to Tim Pool?
Yes,
Yeah.
it did. Just a few days
Somebody
ago.
opened fire on his, on his place. So I think that people don't realize the way opportunity can be, and it doesn't take a lot of resources to manipulate this, to cause people to line up to serve your message, or to at least not mention the truth and not know it.
And I think you'll find the same level of subversion in our publishing industry as well.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, and I got another one here, and I'm going to let you two answer this. Since Russia is representing itself as a Christian country, have they infiltrated any Christian organizations?
Oh dear.
Oh yes.
Where do you want to start? I mean, we could go with the Catholic Church. We could look at the well, actually, we don't even have to. I mean, I think look at the operations that they run with just the Russian Orthodox Church that they're running an operation in the United States right now.
This is where the National
with
Council of Churches. Look, when I was a kid in the '60s, my dad was. They all knew the National Council of no, what was it? The Internet. What is it? The International Council.
International Council of Churches or something like that.
Yeah,
or
it
something
was
like that.
controlled by the
But
the Russians through the Russian Orthodox Church, and suggested this. Whenever you hear about ecumenism or perennialism, that's Dugin, that's the Russians. They're trying to combine all the different religions together and get them all to working together. And of course, their agents are always working on that.
World Council of Churches, I think is
The
what it
World,
is.
right, World Council of Churches.
World
yeah.
Council of Churches.
Very famously, yeah.
Yeah, and do you want to go into the Riverside Church? Yeah, it's too bad Jimmy's not here, right? Jimmy could go on for probably an hour and a half about the Riverside Church.
Oh, I'll have him
and how
on
that
and
was-
have him talk about this.
Yeah,
I
ask
just
him about
talked
the
to Jimmy
Riverside
actually
Church.
an hour before we went live.
Yeah,
He's got a big
tell
event
Jimmy to talk
going
about the
on.
Riverside Church. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get Jimmy. He has talked about it in a previous show, but I'll have him question on that.
Yeah.
again. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. Here we go. Is Johnny single? No, you're not. You're sorry.
It's not a real question.
That's not a question. Johnny's wife would appreciate it. Anyway.
I'm not going to answer that one way or the other. I'm
Yeah,
not going to answer.
Yeah. So anyway, so we haven't got any more questions, so we are going to call it a day for today. I want to thank you two gentlemen for joining us here, and we will do it again next week. Hopefully, we will be able to have Jack with us, our AI, next week. So is that anytime we have a question that we don't know the answer to readily off the top of our heads, we can ask Jack, and he'll go look it up while we continue in the conversation. So with that, folks, I want to thank you all for being here. This show will be uploaded onto both of our YouTube channels. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
That's all, folks.